let's take a look at another one, another concept here. In your previous book, 80/20 Sales and Marketing, you talk about the $10 an hour versus the $10,000 an hour kind of activities and sources of value. Can you, first of all, just explain that concept for those that aren't familiar with it?
Well, so let's say we're talking about a dental office, and Helen answers the phones and she makes $15 an hour. Well, most people like Helen think about money in terms of, well, could I get a raise next year? Could I get $16.50? Could I get $17.50? And people thinking about money in these little increments, but that's not how money works. Money works in like $15 an hour, $100 an hour, $1,000 an hour, $10,000 an hour. It works on I call it a power law scale. Now, most people go, okay, so why would you talk to Helen about making $10,000 an hour? Well, hold on a second. Phone rings. Hello, Wooddale Dental, please hold. And she puts somebody on hold for 2 minutes. And then she picks up again and they've left. And they called the very next dental office and they booked a $5,000, crowns or root canals or whatever. Okay, Helen, by putting them on hold, lost $5,000 in 2 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
That's $150,000 an hour, not $15 an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And this is real. Like, nobody could argue that this doesn't happen every single day on like every main street in the world.
Yeah.
And so the time, if Helen gets with the office manager, the dentist, whoever else, and the staff works out a system to make sure nobody gets put on hold for 2 minutes, nobody gets sent to the wrong person, especially when they're about to spend $5,000. Whatever time it takes to put those systems in place is $1,000 an hour work.
Mm-hmm.
And everything in a business runs on these. It's like there's these long stretches of basically worthless, and then these little short bursts of extreme value. And this is how business actually works. But unless you train yourself to think about $10,000 an hour for 30 seconds or $100,000 an hour for a minute, you'll never catch them, and they just go by.
When you kind of really start to think or have this concept crystallized in your mind, how did you start to apply it in your own business or with your team? What stands out, or what kind of memories do you have, or what kind of comes up like, oh yeah, we did this because it was very clear?
Well, so one of the things I encourage everybody to do is email your closest 5 or 10 friends, colleagues, even like your mom, and ask them, what do you see as my unique capability? What do I do better than just about anybody else you know? And like 10 people give you these answers. If you shave these, like take all that information and you shake it down to, so how would this reduce down to like 5 sentences? I do this and this and this. And what I came up with my list, and I looked at that and I said, okay, especially in the best hours of the day, like most of us have about 3 really good quality hours of super productivity, typically in the morning for most people. Mm-hmm. And then the rest of the day is going to be filler. We're kidding ourselves if we think that we're like hyper productive 10 hours a day. We aren't. But like, especially for that 2 to 4 hours of really peak time, I should be, whatever I'm doing should be on that list of like those 5 things. Okay, so like Michael, you are a coach and a trainer, a marketing advisor and a strategist for consultants. And that's because of, well, from what I know of you, you're very good at isolating problems. You're very good at breaking things down. You're very good at understanding people. Like, you have your core set of things. You should be doing those things, and in fact, stacking those skills, like not just 1 of 5, but ideally 2, 3, 4, hopefully even 5 out of those 5 talent zones in your best hours of the day, and everything else should go away.
Yeah.
Right? So it gets done by your VA or your personal assistant, or it gets done at midnight, or it gets done at some, you could do it while you watch TV, but you don't do it then. And you have these concentrated zones. And that is incredibly important. And what this inevitably means is, if you get to any level of success, it means you are constantly expecting other people to take more and more stuff off your plate.
Yeah. I remember, Perry, when I first learned about this concept, explained in this way, in your book, and then started to kind of introduce clients to it and talk more about it. It became very powerful for so many people, because oftentimes, if you do a bit of an inventory analysis, like, where are you spending all of your time? Which column are you in? Are you in the $10 an hour, the $100 an hour, $1,000? Most people would come back and go, yeah, I am doing some $10 an hour. A lot of my stuff is probably in like the $100 an hour column. I'm not doing as much stuff as I should in the $1,000, and 10,000, like, my mind's never even been there. Like, I never even thought that big before, right? And so what was interesting is then helping clients and people to see that, yeah, sure, there's maybe a bunch of stuff that you're spending time right now that isn't the $100 an hour or $10 an hour column. And you might initially think that that's not the best use of your time or money to try and train someone else to do those things, or money out of your pocket to support those things. But if once you see that you can create more $1,000 or $10,000 an hour type of value, then what you actually start to realize is that every hour that you spend on the $10 an hour or $100 an hour, you're actually losing money, because you could be generating significantly more. So when people can start to see that it's not an expense to bring on team members or to delegate or to build systems, it's actually an investment. And so your exercise and kind of paradigm or table for doing that, I think, is a really good way for people to work through that.
Yes, if there's a chart in the book. If you look at the $10 an hour stuff, if you understand every minute that you spend doing, like, driving to the office supply store, you're losing money. And more importantly, you're losing energy, because we have finite, there's only so many problems and riddles and puzzles that you can unravel in a day.
Right.
Right. So why are you spending your brain cells? Your brain cells is a precious resource.
Yeah. Now, if someone truly enjoys driving to the local Staples or Home Depot and going through the aisles, and somehow that gives, feeds your creative juices, all the best to you, right? But it's really about, where do you spend the limited resource that you have, which is time. And I think that's incredibly powerful.